Our mother is a wise woman. She knew that to get the best out of our family members, you did it in small nudges, especially when discussing things with our father. Start with nudges. Well, these two apples did not fall far from either side of that family tree, and so we both recognize that our planning is short conversations over long-term approach. It is one of the many great benefits of spending each of our Saturdays together on this far-reaching quest. These mini planning sessions, over tea, over coffee, over paper, overcoming our views to be able to absorb another's view. Case's wife has set us up with a project book, and all of our diagrams go in there, and they're starting to look a little better. We have ideas, and we toss them up from time to time. Sometimes they take hold like fire, and sometimes they grip us in our sleep, and we wake with multiple things to get out of our heads. But always the best results come from a combination of inspiration, many talks, ugly diagrams, and time. Small nudges, without demand for instant action. It always makes me smile. Our mother's kind of wise. Our ground loop is to be 3 ground loops, each of which is 400 feet or 122 meters. Ignoring the indoor plumbing, that means 6 holes in the basement wall, with 1 for out and 1 for in for each loop. We buried these loops in separate locations, but all within a large rectangular area. Basically, in order to understand each other quickly, we had to come up with some silly names for the portions of our ideas. Thus, the top portion, dug to a planned 8-foot depth, actually ended up being 6'5", was called the swimming pool, a large rectangle with that 2+ meter depth, which we would eventually drive the excavator down into, and then really start digging. At the bottom of the swimming pool, we would dig 3 trenches as deep as we could go from the bottom of that pool, with a manifold trench at the top. From the place the loops go through the basement wall, we would carefully dig only deep enough to form a ramp from the holes in the wall down to the manifold trench, leaving that ramp undisturbed soil, that it would not settle beneath our pipes. Not all goes exactly to plan, as our expectations for depth were about 20% less. However, it was pretty darn scary operating the excavator so close to the depth that we did actually dig it, a real sphincter shrinker at times. So the loops did not end up exactly to design, but there are reasons we are actually happier with the actual outcome. More about that later. Excavators are for fun. Some will say, you should have had a bigger machine for that job. And we would say, what, and have all the fun be over with so soon? Others would say, a professional should move that dirt much faster. And we would say, well, probably can't say that here. Let's just say this. For my brother and I, paying someone to operate an excavator for us is like paying someone to sleep with our wives. It is the silliest notion that we can think of. This particular excavator comes from Peter's Engine and Rental Center in a town near us, and this place really seems to have a superior business model. We've been renting machines from this organization for years, and we're not sponsored in any way, except that it almost feels like being sponsored, when you feel the money spent is reasonable and the service is so outstanding. I hope for those of you that dip your toe in the excavator rental pool, find an organization just like this one. There's something else we'd like to tell you ahead of time. Clay is like expanding foam, or popcorn. What glaciers and time have laid down in careful, compact layers explodes into piles of dirt that you will always underplan the space for storing. As a friend of this family, Betty said, you are digging up nice ordered bricks and trying to put back boulders. There's another factor at play here too. A pile of dirt has a maximum slope value. In the ground, it doesn't have to stand in a cone. Once above the ground, the base of the piles it makes takes about 3 times the square footage of what you're digging out. We calculated that we dug and replaced 170 yards of compacted clay in approximately 40 hours of excavator time. Who knows how many yards it was once considering its expanded foam state, but that's not very helpful anyway. I guess putting a price on our fun is the responsible thing to do. This information is for the ground loop, which is the digging and the ground loop pipe itself, and it's in Canadian dollars. The 3 lengths of polypropylene pipe at 3/4 inches were $460 in total, including taxes. The rental of the excavator was a bit around $1,300 for the week, delivery and taxes included. Fuel was about $60 per day. Now there is a $3,000 damage deposit for the excavator, but it's refundable, and it seems to be necessary for rental businesses to keep this opportunity open to folks like us. Not part of the cost, just something to know. Basically, we showed up with $1,000 cash each, $2,000 in total, to spend on the rental, fuel, and any extra hours we went above 40 hours for the week. We each kept a little bit of our money, and the whole week of fun costed around $1,800. Well worth it, just for the fun, never mind getting all that work done.
I would have killed for these seats, front row seats, when I was a kid.
Three loops become 2 deep ones and 1/2 as deep. When we ran into some hydraulic issues on the excavator, we were nervous about being able to complete the entire job. It turns out we need not have worried, as the rental organization sent a tech out to solve the problem incredibly quickly. Still, you can only do risk assessment from what you know at the time, and so we said that the 3rd loop would be buried at the bottom of the swimming pool structure. We realized then that this hydraulic risk was actually helping us to see a way to get even better data about the ground loops. By having one ground loop in a different configuration, we can measure the difference in performance of this different loop and find out the importance of depth in our clay and soil and climate zone. And we will pass that on to you just as soon as we start measuring. And here we are at the end of our week, 3 loops buried, ground leveled, plans made for the return of grass. We're back to the kitchen for more scribbling, more coffee and tea, more ideas thrown down and examined, more patient questions from my brother's wife, sprinkled with encouraging words, more nudges toward that ultimate destination of no-cost, low-maintenance utility home. All the while, learning and breaking barriers to doing it yourself along the way. No barriers to DIY.